Since I've been reviewing devices, I've always wanted to find a real hidden gem that went completely unnoticed when it launched. This should be impossible with the rate of technological advancements that happen in this market, but I did manage to find one. Earlier this year, I reviewed the Moqi i7s, which is still the most powerful Android gaming device with built-in controls that you can buy. The whole time I was making that video, I kept wondering, if the Moqi i7s is this good, how bad could the i7 be? Before making this review, I always believed the three most powerful Android devices that you could buy brand new were the Moqi i7s, the GPD XD Plus, and the Powkiddy X18 and 15 in that order. All three of those devices were released between 2019 and 2018 with a price range of $100 to $330. That being said, you can imagine my surprise when I found out that the XD Plus is in fact not the second most powerful device on the market. What's more, it wasn't even the most powerful device when it launched back in 2018, 1 year before the release of the Moqi i7s. For that, we need to go all the way back to 2017 to talk about what is currently the second most powerful Android gaming device that you can buy brand new. Not only does the i7 have a large lead over the more popular XD Plus, you were almost able to pick one up for less than $100. Hello everyone, my name is Taki, and today we're going to talk about the Moqi i7. The Moqi i7 comes with a 10-core Helio X25 CPU with two A72 cores clocked at 2.5 GHz, four A53 cores clocked at 2 GHz, and an additional four A53 cores clocked at 1.55 GHz. Additionally, we have a T880 MP4 GPU clocked at 850 MHz, 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of internal storage, a 5800 mAh battery, and a 6-inch 1080p display. All of this runs on Android 7. The i7 also has support for cellular bands, but I'll put information about that in the description box below. Let's start off by taking a look at the back of the device. As you can see, it's almost an exact copy of the i7s with a gold accent. The speaker placement is on the back of the device, but it is loud and it should not be blocked by your fingers during use. With the back cover off, we can take a look at the large battery that they've packed in this device. It's the exact same one that's in the i7s, but battery life is drastically different between the Snapdragon SoC and this MTK chip. You can also see our dual SIM slots and our big heatsink. I'll touch more on heat later in the video because this spot can heat up if you're going to be playing some really intensive games. Unlike the i7s, this device does not have an SD card slot, but I have found a reasonable solution for this that I'll show you later in the video. Now that we're done with the insides, I just want to quickly clip this back together. On the bottom, we have a headphone jack and your USB Type-C port. This port does not support video out or quick charge. On the top, you have a single set of shoulder buttons, a volume rocker, and a power button. The shoulder buttons are decent with a nice click to them, but they do jiggle around a little, and I wish that they would have secured these in place. The entire profile of this device is relatively thin, and while it is pocketable, I wouldn't say it's pocket friendly due to the dual analog sticks. Onto the front. You have a front-facing camera, a speaker, and a microphone for the cell phone functionality. The left side holds our transparent D-pad and our left joystick. The right and left joysticks do have analog input, but they do not click. The D-pad is the thing that I really want to talk about on this device. For one, it's very responsive, even though it does have a unique shape. To show you why this D-pad is significant, I'll have to go into a testing application. If I press down as hard as I can, there's no way for me to register input in another direction. If you press this button down, there is a point where you know you should not apply more force, but if you continue to press, you still won't register additional input. If you do this and you're slightly off center, you can get double input. As I'm sure you're already aware, this same thing can happen on the i7s, with the major difference being that it does not matter if you're slightly off center or not, you will always get double input. The i7s D-pad lacks a clear point where you feel you shouldn't press more, so it's very easy to overshoot and get this double input. If I take the exact amount of force required to cause this issue on the i7s and use it on the i7, it's impossible to make this issue show up. With this in mind, it really doesn't make sense to me why Moqi went ahead and made their product worse when they did a revision. Just to illustrate this further, here's what it looks like when I press the button down enough to register input versus when I press it down as hard as I can. You can see that there's a wall that I have to push through to force the device to press a different direction. Moving on the right we have transparent input buttons that have this same Oracle bone symbols from the i7s, but I happen to like the style of these buttons better than the newer ones. It will take some time getting used to which button is which, but I love the feel of these and I find them to be very reminiscent of the ones on the Vita. The i7 has a reasonable amount of heft to it due to its size and the components used, but I find that it's very comfortable in the hand just like the i7s. Beyond performance, the screen is a clear star on this device. It's vivid and bright, and I love the way old games look when they are upscaled to this higher resolution. To put things into perspective, let's take a look at some benchmarks of the top gaming devices that you can buy. The i7s has a Geekbench 4 score of 1832 single and 5829 multi-core. The i7 has a single core score of 1775 and a multi-core score of 4477. On the more popular and newer GPD-XD Plus, we have a single core score of 1387 and a multi-core score of 3238. Now let's take a look at Antutu 6, with the i7 coming in at a respectable 138K and a GPU score of 40K. The i7 has a score of 97K with a GPU score of almost 20,000. The GPU score is essentially the biggest difference between these two devices. The GPD-XD Plus, on the other hand, has a score of 70,000 with a very low GPU score of just under 9,000. Hopefully this gives you a good perspective on the distance between the first and second most powerful device and the distance between the second and third most powerful device. Now I want to go over the software on the i7 and the screen mapping function. Much of the mapping UI looks very similar, but there are some key differences here. The i7 doesn't have the level of polish that the i7s has, nor does it have cloud profiles. That being said, it is relatively easy to map a new profile on the fly, as you can see by the video on screen now. All you do is drag out the buttons to map them one by one. The controls operate just like you would expect with any other screen mapping software for Android. The UI on this device isn't anything special, but I do want to mention that this doesn't ship with Google Play. You need to contact Moqi and have them push an OTA update to the device to get you to this version 8.6.135 update that I have now. The only real con with this device is that you do not have access to an SD card slot, and that seems like a huge blunder. You can obviously just swap out games as you need them, but I found these very small USB Type-C adapters that can solve this issue without getting in the way of your hands. I have a few of these, and I find them to be easier to use than doing a battery pull on my i7s just to get to the internal SD card for what it's worth. Now that we've covered the software and build quality of the device, it's time to showcase what you can do with this hidden gem, and I want to start off first by showcasing some Android games. First off, let's take a look at Arena of Valor. MOBAs like this run perfectly on the i7, and they look amazing on this large screen. I also tested out PUBG, and I found that the i7 is perfectly capable of running that game. For those of you that are wondering, this SoC is not powerful enough to run Fortnite, but you can play Call of Duty and other FPS games like Shellfire. Minecraft also looks amazing on this big screen. You can obviously use the i7 for retro games too, but it's kind of a waste with the amount of power that we have in this device, so I'm just going to skip over the major retro systems in this review because they all run without any issues. The first real system that I want to showcase is N64 with a decent collection of games. Similarly to N64, Nintendo DS is also a breeze to run on this device. Now here's where things get interesting. Nintendo GameCube. While the footage runs in the background, I want to call attention to the fact that the GPD-XD Plus can't really play GameCube games at all unless you use very specific settings and emulator versions. And even in those cases, the library of games that will run well are few and far between. As you'll see, the i7 can actually handle a bunch of things that don't run at all on the XD Plus, no matter what you do, but not everything will run at full speed, even if they are fully playable. Even though the i7 has decent GameCube performance, it's not really strong enough to run Wii games. Dreamcast is another highlight of this device, and the games look amazing scaled up to this display. Unfortunately, PS2 is too far of a jump for the i7, so don't expect anything beyond some 2D games to be playable. PlayStation Portable is a different story, and you'll be able to render most games at 3 to 4x native resolutions with no problems at all.
Health pack! So long!
And finally, you always have access to cloud gaming to expand the functionality of the device, and you'll want to use it because this screen is that good. I haven't mentioned battery life yet, but it doesn't quite reach the levels of the i7s. This device can get around 5 hours of intensive gaming before you need to do a recharge, and the recharge is a little slow without quick charge. The final thing that I want to mention is the fact that this device almost went for sale for under $100. Moqi had 800 of these still new in box when I asked them to do a review for this device. After I saw how good this was, I tried to pitch them to put it on sale on Amazon or AliExpress for $100 for over 3 months, but that fell through. They were okay with selling it for $100, but they didn't want to manage the sales, so the $100 dream died. Even though the dream died, you can pick this up on Droidbox if you want. It's just not the amazing deal that it almost was. This is the first hidden gem video that I've featured on this channel, and I'd like to know your thoughts. Feel free to leave those or any other questions below. I'll put links to this device in the description box below if you want to pick one of these up. It's both amazing and sad that a device from 2017 is currently the second best device that you can buy with built-in controls. Hopefully it makes some progress on pushing this and the XD Plus further down the list. I want to say thanks for watching, and I'll catch you here next time with another review. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.